Hello, Internet. I'm Firebolt,
And I'm the Orbiter.
and this is our IRL thing.
This is our first one. I'm so excited. I'm sorry.
At the time of recording, we haven't got a name for this. Probably by the time it's uploaded, we will. So welcome to whatever we end up calling this.
Cheers. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Although it's been probably quite a while when this is uploaded. Anyway, this is just going to be us talking bollocks for half an hour to 3/4 of an hour, probably.
And I don't even know what we're talking about yet.
No. So, today, we are going to be talking about
Dum dum dum.
freedom of speech.
Oh shit. Okay.
It's quite an interesting topic, and it's quite a complicated topic too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But-
Presumably I can say whatever the hell I like.
Yeah. Disclaimer, a lot of the times in this, we will be playing devil's advocate, so it's actually interesting. We won't tell you when those times are, because some of these opinions may also be shit stirring.
Yeah. The other thing, if there's anything that you hear that I say that you disagree with, that's just me proving a point by using my freedom of speech. So.
Also, if you have any complaints, make sure to tweet at real Donald Trump. At real Donald Trump.
He fucking sure shouldn't have freedom of speech. Fucking.
So that's an interesting
banana.
point.
Orange banana. What the fuck?
No, I mean, certain people should have freedom to speak. That's quite an interesting point.
Did you see the latest one today?
What?
You know, a day or two ago, Kim Jong-un was saying about the red button
Oh,
being
yeah.
on his desk.
Uh,
My button's bigger than yours.
and it's more powerful.
I saw somebody post something up on Facebook saying about kids at school being so. What was it that caused World War III? And the kids are replying with penis envy, which is basically what's going to happen, isn't it? If it kicks off. But so that's freedom of speech.
It's also freedom to broadcast is another thing. It's like in the UK we have the Daily Mail, who frequently tell outright lies. Should they be free to do that, knowing that there are so many people that read that paper? Because then you get people that are misinformed.
Well, see, there's a parallel going on here, because one of the things that a lot of people make the mistake over, and there's been some high profile celebrities that this has caught a cropper, is that if you tweet or if you post anything online legally, it's the equivalent of putting something in print, which is covered by different laws. I'm not entirely sure what the what the legal system is, but there's like libel, or there's defamation of character, or there's slander. I think slander's the verbal one, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I think it's both. I believe the only restrictions in America for freedom of speech are slander, essentially.
So what you picked up on there, or what I've highlighted, is, are we talking about, if we're talking about Twitter and we're talking about journalists posting, putting something in print, is that in the under the umbrella of this topic? Because is that counted as speech?
We'll put this under the same topic because I don't think we could fill.
I suppose essentially we're moving on to then, we're including in freedom of speech, or we're considering in conjunction with freedom of speech, the freedom of the press.
Yes. It's an interesting thing. And I'm kind of, myself, undecided to an extent on this. Really, what's the best way to put this? If there are restrictions on the press, then you could get really authoritarian things going on, where any press that criticizes the government could end up being silenced or censored. But on the other hand, then you can stop certain
it's a slippery slope, isn't it?
Yeah.
You kind of
You
there's
need
going to be a
really-
grey area, and you're going to be limiting comedy and humor and satire. If you have you ever read Viz comic?
No.
That's got so. I mean, it kind of it's a comic, but it's kind of an adult comic. It's got like Buster Gonad and his unfeasibly large testicles and fat slags, like comic strip things. But they've got like news pages as well, which are like satirical. You know, they're obviously not true, but everyone who buys Viz knows that they're not reading a newspaper. So should there be rules regarding whether or not something that is put in print is identified by the author as factual or editorial, or because there's the other thing as well, is if you're going to claim that something's factual when you put it in print, presumably you have to back that up with whatever the source of those facts is, and that's one of the things that's kind of dodgy for press, isn't it? They don't have to reveal their sources.
Well, quite often they do, but the scary thing that you sometimes find is either the sources that they're using aren't verifiable themselves, or they use a source that cites them as a source, and it's a sort of circular source site thing, if you know what I mean.
That's kind of cheating, really.
Yeah. I don't know if they set that up themselves or are just ending up accidentally doing that.
I mean, I know freedom of the press is a necessary part of a democratic society, but is it an illusion? Are the press really free? You know,
Well, I suppose to agree that they are free to print whatever they like to an extent.
I know it's becoming dated, but
yeah.
I actually do not, by choice, do not buy any newspapers and haven't done for years, simply because of, and it's probably a case of bad apples, is that I just, in general, I think of the press as vermin, which is quite
Well, but then you
sad.
get certain papers that do genuinely tell the truth and do
Exposés
quite
and-
interesting stories
Yeah.
that are very important. I think there's a Mark Twain quote: "If you don't read the news, you're uninformed. But if you read the news, you're misinformed."
Yeah. I didn't know that quote, but I totally agree with that.
And then you get onto hate speech.
Do you?
Well, it's another area of
What counts as hate speech as well? Because what's hateful to one person isn't to another. You know, it's,
yeah. Because I
what's the
think
definition?
yeah, who defines that is quite difficult. Because you do get some, let's say, these big Christian groups that are claiming that they're being persecuted because they're not allowed to.
We're going to end up on religion, aren't we?
Yeah, well, it is quite a big part of this, I would say.
Yeah.
There's some degree there.
Yeah, but
because there's hate speech about certain religions. Like here, you have some people that really hate Muslims,
and actually, this is
for no good reason.
a totally relevant part of the discussion to have, because I actually sat here and thought, right that second, do I have to be careful about what I say now? Because the content of this video is going to be online. Could we get into trouble if I say something which offends someone?
You're always going to get people that are offended, but it depends how
Talking
valid.
about in a legal sense, though, am I
Yeah.
legally at risk?
I
if
don't think you would be.
I suppose it's a difference between insulting someone and questioning their ideology. But again, that's a matter of opinion, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of a grey area in that sense.
I mean, I'm not targeting any specific religion when I say this, so I think I'm safe to say it. In that I truly believe, we're getting off the subject here, but
Yeah.
I truly believe that religion is
You're trying to word this as carefully as possible.
Oh, I'm trying to be truthful about what I think. Um, I, I think it's on its way out.
Yeah,
It's going to take a long time.
I'm seeing it gradually. More secular things are getting introduced across at least the Western world.
But when that happens, the people who are rooted in a faith and see that being at threat surely are then in danger of becoming more adamant about their beliefs to themselves. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I used to be religious up until probably the sort of early adulthood, mid to late teens. And it probably took me about 10, 15 years after that before I realized that it was okay to say I'm an atheist to myself, even though I knew that I didn't believe in. I mean, this is it's all about semantics, really, isn't it? I think what for me religion gets wrong is labeling what's essentially the creative forces behind the universe. You know, it's no accident that thousands of years ago the church or the religions were involved in scientific research, because for them it was about gaining more knowledge about the creative powers behind what formed our universe.
We should probably
This is freedom of speech.
is this part of freedom of speech?
Well,
I feel like we went off on a bit of a tangent there.
Yeah, we always end up talking about religion though.
Yeah, that might be quite a common theme throughout this series or whatever it is.
Actually, do you know what I think would be really good? Would be if anybody who's watching this has their own setup for doing sort of online chats and what have you. It would be good to hook up with another, with other people online to have an online discussion.
And that could.
So get in touch if you fancy that.
Yeah,
and if you've got any idea on telling us how to get it set up, because we've had numerous technical issues. We're getting there though. Should we try and get back to freedom of speech, or
sure? No, that's
Jonathan Pye. I like Jonathan Pye.
Yes, if you haven't heard of him, go check out his channel, like whatever it's called. I don't know. I think it's just called Jonathan Pye. He does sort of, well, not really satirical, but basically just takes the piss out of things. And I don't know if he is actually a reporter that just does this on the side, or if that's a setup.
He does tour. He's got a show, a touring show. I don't know whether it's like a particular form of sort of stand-up. I mean,
from the trailer, I would say that it is.
Yeah, he kind of masquerades as a journalist reporter, doesn't he?
Yeah,
who's,
and then in the middle
just
of
done a report, and he's just having a chat with his producer.
Essentially, I find that quite funny because he rips the piss out of politicians.
Well, let's face it, most of them deserve it.
Fair enough. So yes, back on to freedom of speech. That was a good segue into how free satire should be.
Yeah, that's a difficult one as well, because there are several really, I believe, really good comedians who deliberately play on that boundary issue. There's no end of comedians that you'll see like, oh, was that a step too far? Or, but people laugh when they're being pushed into their discomfort zone.
Yeah.
And then they end up laughing about the fact that they're laughing about it, because it's a shock to them that they find themselves laughing about.
Well, there is, that sort of shock value to those comedians. And that's why people go see them. People like Jimmy Carr and Frankie Boyle. But I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about people that, probably do sort of news reports, but in a satirical fashion. and that's the main idea of their comedy, like John Oliver.
Yeah.
But then you could get some satirists that, people don't really take it enough as satire. And sometimes I don't know how often, they kind of push the boundaries of the truth.
You know what, though?
But with most satire, I found that generally the funny thing about them is that they're using common sense to look at the news.
I must admit, I'm in the same camp as Stephen Fry on that issue about offending people. And his philosophy on it is that you've taken offence at what I've said, so fucking what? It's like,
people
remember that
take offence, don't give it.
Yeah, absolutely. Offence is something that's taken.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult thing to gauge, especially on the internet, because everyone gets offended at everything.
We might get some people offended at what we're saying.
Yeah, and then you'll just prove our point.
Thank you very much for your input.
There's a story about sort of freedom of speech. If you haven't heard of this person, Alex Jones, right-wing pundit in America, who runs this conspiracy theory sort of show where he goes through a bunch of conspiracy theories that are absolutely bonkers and have no evidence to back them up. And some people genuinely believe them and take action on it. I believe he claimed a pizza shop in New York was run by pedophiles, and so someone tried to shoot up that pizza shop.
Right.
So you do get some danger if you just allow free speech to run wild. But then you're like, well, in an open and free society, is that just the risk that we have to take?
Is it not widely known that this guy... I mean, does he make it clear that these are conspiracy theories and utter tripe stories? Or does he report it as news?
He reports it as news.
Right.
He got in legal trouble for that particular
Why am I not
incident.
surprised?
And he had to say that it was the character of him that was in that show, not him, so that he didn't get sued.
Well, by that token, I could go out and do anything and just claim that I was playing a role. I mean, we all have different characters that we play in different parts of our lives. I mean, I suppose the fact that his is on screen at that point is, he's playing a character, but is it made clear that it's fiction? When you go
well, if people are actually believing it, and they aren't actually mentally ill people that are believing it, it's quite a big audience.
But you had the thing with the broadcast of War of the Worlds back in was it the 50s originally? I can't remember when it was, but the BBC. Oh no, it was on in America. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But I know it's a famous thing that people started panicking because they were listening to a broadcast of a dramatization of War of the Worlds when it was first put on the radio, and they thought there was an alien invasion going on.
Yeah, because to be honest, people can be pretty stupid at times. You probably know that. You've probably dealt with a lot of stupid people. And it's when you can't see the boundary between... I mean, I suppose outright saying, none of this is real, we're just going to talk bollocks, really. It kind of ruins the immersion, I suppose, in a story. Beforehand, you have to go, oh no, this is totally not real. This is not happening.
Yeah, then you get the opposite situation where you go to see a film and it says based on a true story, and it's like you might be stretching that a little bit. It's obviously dramatized.
So under freedom of speech, there's a lot of things about interpretation of that speech. And how that gets interpreted can...
Maybe it's more about intent.
But intent doesn't always equal what actually is interpreted.
And that's then another example of
But then you can
the receiver being the one that was.
But then you can just say, "Oh, I said this thing. I didn't intend for people to believe it." Afterwards, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been in situations where so-called friends have said something, and you get upset by it, and they're like, "Well, I didn't mean it like that. You know, I was only joking. I was only like pulling your leg." And it's like, you try to work around in your head, how could that possibly have been? I mean, if it was a joke, you're not funny. You know, it's like. But I think in those situations, sometimes it's a case of somebody backing out because they've realised what hole they've dug themselves into.
Yeah. Some people don't know when to do that, though.
And some people truly don't actually realise what they're like. They actually believe that they're nice people because they're just being themselves, and sometimes aren't aware that they're upsetting people.
And this got deep all of a sudden. So yeah, I don't feel like we talked enough about the hate speech thing.
Yeah,
It's quite a big area of it. Because I believe in the UK it is... Obviously, threat is something that's, I think, pretty much illegal worldwide. And, but just general hate speech. First of all, what is counted as hate speech? And then whether that should be illegal.
Well, do we have a definition?
I do have my laptop here. You can't see it. So I shall look up the very definition of hate speech.
Because I would imagine that the definition would vary from country to country.
Yeah. I believe it's particularly racism in the United Kingdom.
There's also incitement to religious hatred, isn't there?
Yeah, this is it's because we're both atheists. Sometimes we will mock religions. It's okay if you have your own religious beliefs, by the way. That's fine, but we will sometimes mock the actual beliefs.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with people practicing their own religion. It's just like when it starts to get to kind of... It's a difficult one because there are aspects of certain religions which require them to try to spread their religion. Yeah. Like evangelistic Christians, it really annoys me when I see them out.
Here's the definition of hate speech. Hate speech is speech which attacks a person or group on the basis of attributes such as race, religion, ethnic origin, sexual orientation, disability, or gender.
Which attacks a person. So you've got to define what attack means then, really. I mean, is what you might consider justified criticism, could that be interpreted as an attack?
And then you get stereotyping. Where, there's probably a lot of stereotypes about gay people being very camp. And at what point does that become hate speech? Because there is a certain point where you're like, yeah, that's a bit much.
It's a really difficult one because I think along with a lot of issues like sexual harassment and bullying in the workplace, all that sort of stuff, the crucial part is how it's received.
Yeah, it can sometimes the receiver is at fault. Like a lot of people on the internet just take offense for things that are not really something that to be taking offense at.
But then everybody's got a different past.
Yeah.
Something that really upsets me might not necessarily upset somebody else because they haven't been through the same things I've been through. So do I then have a right to accuse them of, inappropriate conduct or whatever? I mean, they had that whole thing with the Me Too thing that went round last year. And I actually felt quite... It's a good thing that it's all coming out into the open, but I actually felt a little bit...
There is... Because I did see some people who hadn't actually been sexually harassed, they were just showing sympathy with people that had, and saying, well, I've used sex to get what I want.
I know that it's,
But that's not really the person that they're having sex with.
I know that
is it?
it's a reflection of the perceived direction that it usually happens in. But I felt that as a bloke, I didn't have a right to join in with any of that, even though I have been sexually abused and I have been sexually harassed in the workplace. And I felt that and it's probably a reflection on society, that as a man, I don't feel empowered to admit that. And I use the word admit deliberately because it feels like an admission of guilt. You know, it's like...
Yeah. I mean, at a point, women coming out with that, would be considered, oh, you're just lying and you were wearing something funny. It's like, they probably weren't. And
I suppose the difference is in the sort of intimidatory kind of aspect, and whether it continues. I mean, a specific instance, when I was in a job I was doing a couple of years ago, a female colleague slapped me on the arse really hard, and kind of in a joking way, but it was actually quite hard, and I felt uncomfortable about where that might go. It wasn't a case of the way the situation was dealt with. I semi-jokingly said, I could have you up with sexual harassment charges for that, and I was kind of half joking, half not, because if she continued to do stuff like that, or it had escalated in any way, then I would have been quite within my rights. But she didn't. And
there is a matter of context. I think there was a survey YouGov did recently, and basically it was of what the British public thought certain actions would be considered sexual harassment. One of them was winking at a woman, and 3% of people thought that was sexual harassment.
3% is not a lot, though.
Yeah, I know. I'll try and get the actual survey up so that I can find some.
But like you said, it is really about context. I mean, that could literally just be a way of indicating to somebody that you're joking about something. But at the same time, it could actually be really creepy if
you don't know each other and you're not in that kind of way. I believe this is...
Or it could be an appropriate form of flirting.
Yeah, because with certain things, you're like, well, the first time, it could just be an actual thing where you're like, well, I actually want to flirt with this person. How do I do that without being considered?
That's the key,
but then
isn't
you
it?
get repeated stuff.
Yeah, that's the key. I think with the same thing with that slap on the arse incident, I think the key is how did the person react?
Right, so there's some stuff like trying to take a photo up a woman's skirt, which almost unanimously people think is sexual harassment. Fair enough. Pinching bottoms.
Non-consensual, presumably.
Yeah, all of these are a man doing this, though, I would say. None of this say a woman doing this to a man or a man doing this to a man.
I think there's two separate issues going on there then. I think it's important to recognise if a situation is primarily women that are suffering from it, fine. But I think it's far too often referred to as a man doing something to a woman when it's irrelevant. It's a person doing something to a person.
Yeah.
Whether they're men or women, it's unacceptable.
You do get
Fine,
a lot of,
refer to the statistics, but
I find it quite annoying because
gender's not relevant. Don't
feminists
bring it up.
on the internet often make quite broad statements. I believe they're often called social justice warriors, that sort of stuff. And like they make broad statements like all men rape. And that's just not true.
I think sometimes.
And then at that point it turns into, instead of feminism, misandrism.
What's that mean?
Well, like misogynism, sort of derogatory towards women. Misandrism would be derogatory towards men.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a perhaps for me a mistaken assumption by a lot of people that feminism is about equality,
Yeah, so there's
but
one here,
surely that would be
a
humanism.
man directing sexual jokes at a woman, and most people believe that to be sexual harassment.
Um,
It directing
well,
is a bit
but
vague.
it says the question is. Which of the following would you consider to be sexual harassment if a man who was not a romantic or sexual partner or friend?
Does it say friend?
It does say friend. I just read that actually. Yeah, if it's a friend.
Mm,
It does seem a little bit random that you would do any
yeah.
of those things to somebody who wasn't at least a friend. You know, I mean, you don't go
But
and make
then
a sexual joke to somebody
the last
who
one
you're not
is a
familiar with.
man asking a woman out for a drink, which, to be honest, a stranger might do as an attempt to pick someone up. Yeah, a man looking at a woman's breast. There's a big drop off. Men, by the looks of it, don't think that's sexual harassment at all. And women.
But it really depends on how you're looking and whether it's deliberate. You know, it's like it's a rather large area to completely visually avoid.
And as a teenage boy going through puberty, I do often find myself deliberately avoiding looking at anything in that area.
That'll pass.
Oh, do you mean that you just gain confidence with that? Or...
No, you just probably learn to get away with it better.
Wow, that's kind of creepy, in a way.
It depends. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be a lech, you know. You don't want to be kind of giving unwelcome attention to anyone. But you know, I don't see the big issue about what's so individually specific about breasts. You know, I mean, why is it any more acceptable to look at someone's ears or their arms or
well, breasts are particularly sexualized.
And why is that?
It's like that's a weird thing.
It's got nothing to do.
If you think of it, their actual purpose within the human is, well, within a woman, is to produce milk for children. So it's kind of weird that it's sexualized.
And maybe that's another instance of an inequality going on, because it's not sexualized with men nearly as much. You know, blokes can walk around with their tops off. It's not an issue.
It's kind of sexualized. It's just only if they've got a six-pack or something. And I suppose that's more like the abs and stuff. Right.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't see the big deal. You know, it's like...
Yeah, I feel there's simultaneously too much done and not enough done, which is weird to say. Those who have just sort of had people ask them out sometimes act as if they've been violated.
Yeah.
And a lot of thing with how, I mean, if you've listened to how I mean, you're probably an exception because you and Mum met online, but a lot of people asking out that are older couples did this persistently until they got together, that sort of thing. So it's this persistent sexual harassment because it actually maybe ended up with them being partners.
I suppose everything has to be taken in the context of the sort of social environment that you know grow up in.
Yeah. But then you can't know what social environment everyone else has grown up in.
No.
And how they'll take certain things. So I suppose a lot of places it's just once they've been asked to stop, at what point it becomes sexual harassment.
Just have a bit of respect for people. That's all it boils down to.
Genuine to sort of rule for everything, though.
Yeah. Peace, man. Woman and child. And all genders in between.
Because we're going to get in trouble for that if we don't say it. You see, it's quite an interesting... Because talking about freedom of speech and talking about offence, you're worried that you'll offend someone. So it's kind of an interesting way to see that point, I think.
Really?
So, with this IRL thing, to be honest, don't know if we're just going to do this next week with a different topic, or if we thought about playing board games and card games and having we weren't exactly sure how to set out the camera on that, because whether we wanted the focus to be on us or the game. And
me. It's all about me.
I briefly thought about doing sketches, but I don't know if we can actually think of something funny to do a sketch on.
Not on the spur of the moment like that, no.
Nah. This is why you get people that are comedy writers.
And why we're not.
Yes. So that we might not do sketches.
But we might.
We might. We don't know what's going to happen.
Nobody knows what's going to happen.
No?
Jesus. You didn't know that was going to happen, did
you? Fuck you. Wow. Right. Yes, so we should...
It's all descended into chaos.
Yeah, so we started talking about freedom of speech, ended up on offence and sexual harassment.
Via religion.
Yeah, we may have to cover the same topics that we talk about here a bit more.
We should have a phone-in show.
A phone-in show?
Well, all right then, a chat show. Let's do a chat show.
Well,
an online chat show.
An online chat show. Who's gonna give us like suggestions and questions?
I don't know.
What is?
You'd have to go live stream, and I know you're not really into that.
Well, yeah, just what the chances that any just random person would go, oh, look at this thing.
Well, we could try it. We could just sit and chat, and if nobody comes in, they don't come in. But we've recorded it anyway.
I suppose.
And then if they do, we can say, "Do you have any questions?" Because we're recording a thing, and you're live now.
Yes.
Please don't go away. I have to actually on my live stream chat thing that I've got, you get levels of expertise if you like, and I'm either a junior or a rookie. I'm working towards being a captain. But to be a captain, I have to guest 5 people.
Guess 5 people.
Yeah, you can. If you're doing a live stream, you get people coming in to do like text chat with you while they're watching you. But you can invite any of those people that are in your room to guest, and then it does a split screen where you're talking to them live across the internet.
But then, is that at the same time?
At the same time as what?
Do you have to guess 5 people at the same time?
Oh no! Just that you just have to get to that level. I just need to have guested 5 times.
All right, so it doesn't have to be different people.
No, I think you can only guest 1 at a time because you get like a guest queue sometimes.
Right. So yeah, we should probably be wrapping up.
Okay, so that's our freedom of speech.
Have you thought of a name during this?
For what?
For this talking bollocks thing.
Firebolt and the Orbiter talk bollocks?
Or just Breaking Dad talks bollocks.
Breaking bollocks.
Sure.
Yeah, that might not be allowed on YouTube. Breaking bollocks.
You can do like the asterisk thing.
Oh, that's true. Asterisk.
Anyway,
unless you're
I don't
talking
think
about the
bollocks
French
is
comic
considered
character.
an expletive.
Well,
it is. It's sort of a rude word, but it's not exactly a swear, I wouldn't say. Anyway, we've rambled on for long enough. We should probably wrap this up. So I have been Firebolt.
And I've been the Orbiter.
And this has been us talking bollocks.
It has indeed. You've got to say your thing.
What? Oh, farewell.
See you next time.
Wave.
Oh, sorry. That'll do.